Okay, this is Chair Yakovo speaking. We are ready to go live?
Yes, ma'am.
You're live.
Okay, thank you very much. With that said, I'll formally open the meeting at 5:15 and extend a welcome to the Thursday, December 17th Transportation Commission meeting. I'd like to thank everyone for attending our meeting tonight virtually. Unfortunately, we are still meeting virtually, and until further notice, these commission meetings will be held electronically to virtually attend and listen and view the meeting in progress. Transportation Commission meetings are televised on Cox Cable Channel 11, streamlined online at scottsdaleaz.gov, or they will be available on Scottsdale's YouTube channel to allow the public to listen and or view the meeting in progress. I'd like to take a minute to welcome our new commissioners to their second official meeting. And upon that, I will ask for a roll call for attendance for tonight's meeting. And I'm not sure if that's Tina or Mariah or Francis.
This is Mariah. I can go ahead and do the roll call.
Thank you, Mariah.
And then just real quick before I do, just to make sure, I know everybody has the housekeeping items, but when you, just as a reminder, when you guys do state that you're here or that you're going to speak, just announce your name and identify yourself so that the listeners know who's speaking. If you call to a motion or anything like that, just so we know who it is that's doing that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead with the roll call. So first we have Vice Chair Anderson.
Present.
Okay. Chair Lockable.
Present.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Present.
Commissioner Kowal.
Present.
Commissioner Lal.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Pochowski.
Present.
And Commissioner Yates.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariah. Do we have any public comments? Spoken public comment is being accepted on agenda action items. The request to speak forms were to be submitted 90 minutes before the start of the meeting.
We do not have any public comment.
Perfect. Any written comments would be accepted for both agendized and non-agendized items and should be submitted electronically at least 90 minutes before the meeting. These comments will be emailed to the Transportation Commission and posted online to the meeting. Do we have any
written comments?
No written comments?
Yeah, we do not have any written comments.
Perfect.
Mariah and Chair Yakovo. I apologize for interrupting. Megan Lynn assisting on the meeting from the staff side. I just wanted to alert as part of the housekeeping items for the meeting that because we have brought everyone in attendance from the commission side over to the panelist side of the webinar, the hand raised feature is going to be in a slightly different spot. To get to that hand raise, you'll just need to click on the participants button. That will bring out a pop-up for you, and at the bottom of that participants pop-up on the panelist side, you will see a hand raise option. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions about where their hand raise is located? Okay. With that, I would, before I ask for an approval or a motion to approve the minutes, that is our next item on the agenda. I do have a couple of comments about the minutes. I was going to ask a couple of questions and then turn it over to anybody else who might have comments or questions. But one of my questions relates to page 2 and page 9. On page 2, I am referred to as the vice chair, which may or may not be correct. But definitely on page 9, by the time we're adjourning, I think my title should be chair. Is that correct or not correct?
Okay, page 9 will correct to say chair. Page 2, which item was it?
It's near the bottom of the page, Francis. It's the very last paragraph It says Chair Yakovo called for comments or changes on the minutes. And Vice Chair Anderson made a correction to those minutes. But then in the body of the approval, I'm called the Vice Chair.
Vice
I wasn't
Chair.
sure if that was correct or not correct.
Nope, that should be changed to chair as well.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Francis.
Uh-huh.
Are there any other comments or questions or discussion about the minutes? From,
Could you enlarge the agenda a bit to make it easier to read?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Lowe, could you repeat that?
I was asking if we could enlarge the agenda a bit, making it easier to read. It's pretty small print, so there's, yeah, good, thanks. That helps.
You're welcome.
if there are no other action items on the minutes for the meeting, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Do I have
So
a motion?
proposed, Kent?
Kent Law.
Commissioner Law?
The first motion is from Mr. Law, from Commissioner Law.
This is Vice Chair Anderson. I second that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. All in favor of approving the minutes with the conditional amendment changes, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And I just wanted to make sure, Mariah, that we didn't need to do a roll call for the approval of the minutes, or should we do a roll call? Or Francis, should we do a roll call?
Yes, we should go ahead and do a roll call for the minutes.
Okay. I will turn that over to Mariah then to do the roll call.
Okay, so we have Commissioner Law for the motion.
Yes,
We have Vice Chair Anderson as a second.
Correct.
And then we have approval from Chair Yakovo.
Yes, I approve the minutes.
We have approval from Commissioner Kowal.
Yes, approved.
We have approval from Commissioner Miller.
Yes.
We have a approval from Commissioner Pochowski.
Yes, approved.
And we have approval from Commissioner Yates.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Mariah. The next item on our agenda is item number 4. It's the 2020 congestion report, which is a live link in the agenda. And I want to thank the city for making the report available to us. I'd like to call on Director Melenchenko to introduce our presenter tonight, if that's okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Transportation Commission members. I wanted to tonight, Doug Osler, one of our traffic engineers, will be presenting tonight, but I wanted to also thank him for his years of service here in Scottsdale in the Transportation Department. This is kind of his swan song, his last presentation and day at the city, and he's going to be moving over to the Boston area. So I just wanted to pass that on, and we appreciate and thank him for all the work that he's done for the residents of Scottsdale, the study and analyses and the traffic engineering solutions that he's provided us. So I just wanted to pass that along before Doug begins his presentation.
Thank you. And Doug, do you think the snowstorm has anything to do with you going there?
Perhaps they want me to stay here at Scottsdale.
I'm thinking that.
All
Okay.
right. Let me go ahead and share my screen to start the presentation. All right. I believe everyone should see the full screen title page. Thank you, Mark, for that introduction. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. As Mark had pointed out, I am Doug Osler. I'm a traffic engineer for the city of Scottsdale. I put together and I'm presenting tonight the 2020 congestion report that is in the final stages of completion. This publication is the city's first contemporary report on traffic operations at major intersections and roadway segments or corridors. The report includes all intersections within the city's traffic models. This includes evaluations for up to 280 intersections and 30 overall roadway segments. The report presents letter grades for intersections, and for corridors, we use a percentage to represent the performance for roadway corridors. The city traffic models are created and maintained by the Traffic Management Center. The models assist with the maintenance and potential changes in projections for the city. As models, they provide approximate conditions that we can look at how well we should expect different areas to work, as well as potential changes if we're looking to do any improvements. The basic process for producing this report is fairly simple. It can be summarized into just a few steps. The traffic volume counts at locations are collected by the Traffic Management Center. This report includes volume data from 2016 through 2019. As a side note, it does not include anything in 2020 with the recent traffic conditions that we've been experiencing. The volume data has been added into the model along with geometry data and timing parameters. The Traffic Management Center does additional observations, adjustments, and optimizations. From those models, the Traffic Management Center generates many files from which we tabulate and extract pertinent data. The report then is created from those output files. This presentation, I'll note, does not delve into modeling software or management policies, but it's important to note that the report is presenting modeled results. The report provides easy identification of locations that may need further evaluation. Identified locations will be considered for study and capacity improvements for future capital projects. Signal parameters may also be reviewed in the Traffic Management Center. Further evaluation may reveal no issue or no realistic solution, or one or more potential changes. Changes could include simple signal timing changes or configuration changes. Larger changes could also be recommended, such as adding a right turn lane, acquisition of right-of-way, or even lead to suggesting a larger capital improvement project. An earlier slide mentioned letter grades for intersections. This was in reference to intersection levels of service. Levels of service is a nationally accepted rating system. It is based on average delay at an intersection. And those ratings are listed from A to F. You can imagine A is better than F. Though there's not necessarily any failing grade, it's just a letter system. Scottsdale generally considers level of service D as acceptable for peak hours, though variation is normal for minute to minute or per hour or day or season, as you can imagine. Expectations can vary by circumstances or person also. For example, one might be used to and be okay with more delays in the downtown and urban areas, whereas one might expect far less delay in rural or suburban areas. Similarly, individuals can have personal expectations that differ from others. If we, yes. Yes, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. This delay at intersections does indicate correctly, based on highway capacity manual, the signalized and unsignalized intersections. However, in the intersections that are going to be discussed, some are at interchanges, and they have a different level of service parameters, as opposed to, they're generally 50% more than what's listed here. We had discussed that in an earlier meeting as well, and I would have thought that they should also be included.
Thank you for the comment. I will point out that in this report, we do not have the specific interchanges in the report, whether they're under the jurisdiction of ADOT. There are some that are, I believe, are under our jurisdiction, operated by the city. We have the model results. The report was based off of the model results, and for a number of reasons, the model that we use does not handle interchanges very well at all when it is looking at the criteria of the highway capacity manual. And so they were not included in this report.
Considering that in later part of the report, there are intersections that relate to interchanges, their level of service is specified. 101 Raintree, 101 Frank Lloyd Wright, and so on.
Chair and Commissioners, I apologize. I was partially mistaken. I was thinking of the diamond interchange types. There were the single point urban intersections that have that are operated with a single set of signal indicators, and those are included in the report. They operate fairly normally as far as a 4-phase or a 3-phase intersection, and we are able to model those in a decent manner.
Yeah, but the level of service criteria is different. The times are, for example, level of service A is 15 seconds or less. For B, it would be 15 to 30 seconds, not 10 to 20. There are different parameters for those. And that table should be included in here if you're referring to interchange intersections.
Chair and Commissioners, we will get back to you on that and determine how, if the model is producing based on the correct chapter, they're based on different chapters, if they use the correct chapter of algorithms to produce the level of service, and we can update that.
Mr. Minot is here, I'm sure. He and I did discuss it, and he's very aware of the situation, and he informed me previously that the consultant had used the correct level of service times for the interchange intersections.
Dave Meinhardt, might jump in. Yeah, Commissioner Lawler, that's correct on the item that I discussed a few meetings ago with the commission regarding freeway interchanges and proposed modifications. Yeah, I had used basically the table that Doug is showing here instead of the freeway interchange one. Mistake on my part, but the analysis there, that was a different analysis done specifically for those interchanges by ADOT's consultant, as opposed to the analysis that Doug is reporting on. But we'll put our heads together and make sure that we've got things set up the way they should be before the report gets finalized.
Yeah, it would be best just to include that table as well, that for interchanges, those were the times that were used. That would be my suggestion.
So this is Chair Yacovo. I was, so is there more than one table that is being used currently, Doug or Dave? Are we looking at the table that the city is using for the roadways and the 280 intersections? Or is there another table? I can't remember if it's farther back in this report to which Commissioner Lowell is referring to for a certain interchange analysis.
Chair and Commissioners, thank you. The different tables present the different parameters for each level of service letter rating. So there's a range of delay that would be acceptable within that letter range. So if you have a signalized intersection, you see on the middle column or on the left. And if we're looking at an unsignalized intersection, we generally look at the column on the right. Those are the upper and lower criteria for each letter. The interchanges, they have a separate criteria that the other commissioner is saying we should add on to this presentation, as well as make sure it is displayed and reported correctly within the main report.
Right. So I see Hong Huo has also put her hand up. I'll call on her to contribute to the conversation.
Good evening, Chair and Vice Chair and all the commissioners. This is Hong. So I just want to add some input to this question. Because all those letters, the level of service are the output from our model. And I believe the synchro model treat the interchange as two separate intersections. So they are not considered as one interchange. That's why when synchro give the rating, it's based on the intersection, not the interchange. But we can do further study if that's more appropriate. Maybe we can manually calculate the delay and then reassign the level of service based on the interchange level service criteria. So we will get back to you about which way is better. So basically, one option is we will have two tables. One is for interchange, and the other one is for intersection. And so they have different criterias, but we have to manually calculate the interchange as one interchange. Another way is we list them as two separate intersections as we're providing right now. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lal, do you have further questions, or should we let Doug continue on with his presentation?
I would prefer the first approach where it's interchange intersections as a separate treatment, as opposed to trying to change interchange intersections as two intersections, because that's not the correct way to go. So what Hong Ho is suggesting in the first part, I will go along with that.
Okay, thank you. We'll make a note of that, Commissioner. And Hong, if you also make a note of that, and then we can continue on with Doug's presentation.
Sure, got it.
Chair and Commissioners, thank you for the input. I will continue with the next slide. So if we, when we aggregate all of the intersection level of service results from the models that we received into a distribution charts by peak hour, the AM peak hour, the midday, and PM peak hours, we can conclude that nearly all of the intersections under the City of Scottsdale jurisdiction currently operate acceptably, and more than half even operate at level of service C or even B or better during the peak hours. We can also separate these distributions by roadway classifications I have in the next slide. And we see a pattern by the different types of roadway classifications. The major intersections are more likely to operate near to level of service C, whereas minor intersections are more likely to operate near to level of service A. Maybe a little difficult to see on the screen, but it's clear on the next slide, where we take all of the peak hours together and separate it by the classification. When we do this, we can more clearly see that the minor intersections on the right side, which generally have fewer entering vehicles, tend to operate with less delay than the major intersections, which generally have more entering vehicles, and that's shown on the left side, and is fairly consistent through the different peak hours. On this slide, we list out some of the higher and lower performing intersections with respect to the level of service according to the report. Some of the key takeaways we see are that high traffic volumes are at an intersection tends to experience more delay as the time to facilitate the individual vehicles increases. and also the effects of nearby intersections. The location in relation to other signalized intersections can help or hinder vehicle progression. Relating to the location of vehicles, we also consider separate corridors within the report. And how well a corridor operates is often described as either the total travel time along the corridor or the average travel speed. The travel time is the total duration, both while driving at speed and also delays at intersections. For comparison purposes between corridors with different lengths and speed limits, this report presents a percentage as a performance measure. The percentage can reference travel time by dividing the theoretical travel time without any delays, dividing that by the total travel time. The percentage can also reference speed by dividing the average travel speed by the speed limit. Keep in mind, these are model delays and travel time using speed limits. So they're not necessarily completely accurate, but it gives us a means to compare different corridors to one another. When we plot the corridor percentages on a Boston Whisker chart, we see that the AM, midday, and PM peak hours average 65%, 69%, and 65% in the PM, respectively. The report calls out individual outlying corridor directions, and the next slide highlights those locations visually on a map to better visualize it. And you see the map on the right side. We have several highlighted corridors on that map. Several of the lower performing corridors are located generally near downtown areas of Scottsdale, and better performing corridors tend to be longer roadway segments. Some of the key takeaways that we look at are that for built out areas, there tends to be more roadway users, though it doesn't directly align with the intersections listed previously, the ones that we indicated were at lower levels of service. It doesn't directly align with those, but some include them and some do not. The more traffic signals and intersections there are in an area, the more likely that interruptions occur. Similarly, less than ideal spacing of traffic signals also interrupts continuous traffic flow. There's also a degree of heavy commuting of traffic to and from Loop 101. In conclusion, this report may be utilized along with other documents as a screening tool to identify locations for further evaluation, in addition to regular management. Again, please keep in mind the results are model-based. It provides another perspective, but is not perfect. So when we identify locations, we'll often look at it in more depth and have real-time observations and such. Of all the intersections evaluated, 96% of them operate at level of service D or better during the peak hours, and 91% operate at level of service C or better. In our grid system, delays occur at traffic signals. There are traffic clearing needs, synchronization effects, and influences due to signal spacing. And also, congestion increases generally as population and employment increases. As traffic management can optimize conditions to our selected goals, but the more traffic that exists, the less wiggle room we have to optimize the flow of traffic in a networked condition. And this concludes my written presentation. I'd like to thank you for your time, as well as open up to further questions that the commissioners may have.
Thank you, Doug, for your presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Because I do have a couple of questions, but I wanted to defer to anybody else on the commission that may have some comments or questions. And I don't see any hands. My question is for you, Doug, or for any of the other city staff, such as Hong, who may reply to this, but this seems like a very important analysis that a lot of decisions are being based off of. Would you consider that a true statement, that it's an important analysis and we use it for lots of reasons, and such as signal timing and looking at the traffic in the traffic operations center, deciding what should be done and where, and certain locations should get right or left turn lanes, or is that a fair statement?
Chair and Commissioners, I would like to say that the modeling efforts certainly go into making decisions. The report itself does lead to some conclusions and some further evaluation. I wouldn't say it's necessarily critical, but more of another tool that we have to look at it sometimes with a different perspective. It's something that we appreciate and is valuable to, particularly to look at potential improvements and what effects they might have, we could expect to have with different conditions. But once again, it's one more tool in our tool belt of traffic engineering.
Thank you. I see that Hong has her hand raised. If it's okay, I will call on Hong to also talk about that.
Yes. So, Chair Pamela, this is Hong. So, I would say this is a byproduct of the signal timing effort. So, basically, the more critical work of the whole modeling is the traffic signal timing optimization. So, this is the result from the signal timing optimization process. So, it's not the other way around. But this report just give us overall more like a heat map to show where are the most congested locations. For example, if you imagine if all the level F will be mapped as red dot, and then level B or C mapped with like green dot, just show you overall where we have the most congested locations. It's not the other way around. But this does give us like input. Oh, this location may have more congestion. We need to pay more attention, or we may need to come up with some countermeasures to improve the operation. Does this answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
Chair Yakima, this is Phil Kircher.
Yes.
Just wanted to add, as Hong was kind of stating, like when you compare this to our traffic volume and collision report, those traffic volumes, may change. Anytime you're looking at traffic data, which in this case is the analysis is based on turning movements and volumes during different peak hours of the day, we like to refer to that as kind of a snapshot. As Doug mentioned, these volumes were collected over a 3-year period. So a good example is, again, as he mentioned, none of the data is coming from 2020 because all those volumes for the most part of this year have been down up to 40%. So as Hong said, this is kind of a heat map. It's kind of a very general look at how the system is performing. But if we're making decisions about signal timing needs or changes or capital projects, the need for left turn lane, we would go and do a more thorough analysis. We wouldn't base it on this. But again, it provides a kind of a very general overview. So it is a tool, but it's not going to replace a more detailed, specific analysis at any particular intersection or along any corridor. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Were there, I have another question, and then I see that Vice Chair Anderson also has his hand up. Were there any, in this report, were there any findings that were surprising to the staff, or was it consistent with what you were expecting the report would show?
Chair and Commissioners, there were a number of things that came out as near where we were expecting. It was noted that there were a couple intersections that showed more delay than what at least I was expecting, and it had been a little bit of some preliminary discussions that we've had very recently as this report has been wrapping up. There are a number of things that we're sort of used to and seeing, but there have been a few intersections that indicated potentially higher delay than we're expecting. Whether or not it might be some slight calibration that might be considered, or if it really is something that needs to have some better countermeasures. It's something that we'll be looking into in the future.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Vice Chair Anderson?
Yes, Vice Chair Anderson. I noted in the introduction to the congestion report that the last one of these reports was done over a decade ago. Is there any projection as to how often you're going to do this analysis, or how often you would like to do this type of analysis to try and give the litmus test to your intersections?
Chair Yakova and Vice Chair Anderson, this is Phil Kircher again. I'll try to answer that. The level of service report was something that was done fairly routinely. We actually were having a hard time finding one of the older reports. I think they were done as late as sometime during the 90s, but we actually couldn't find one. This actually, this report and this presentation actually was a request of the commission from probably within the last 2 years, and it took a little bit different. We took a little bit different approach than we had anticipated, given the data that was available. Doug did a lot more thorough analysis than we had anticipated. The problem is it is very data intensive. As you can imagine, as Doug mentioned, he's included up to 200 and something intersections, and to do this again in 2 years, we'd have to collect data, turning movement counts at all those intersections. So again, it's very intensive, and we do see that we probably would plan to update this in a couple of years, but Hong can jump in if she wants to correct me. But where technology is going is there are a lot of software packages that can tie into our signal system and essentially give you real-time performance data. So it can also prepare reports and things. So it's more likely that in 2 years, we would come back to you with a similar report, but rather than it being based upon us collecting traffic volume data with tubes or cameras throughout the city, that the system will be collecting that data and it will be telling us how the intersections are operating. So much more state of the art and more timely. Again, Hong, I don't know if you want to add anything onto that.
Yes, Hong, I see your hand is up, so please go ahead.
Yes, Vice Chair, Mr. Anderson, so this is Hong. It's just to add what Bill already mentioned. Actually, he already explained very well. Just one more thing to add is, unless there's dramatic traffic condition change, for example, like the pandemic, during pandemic and pre-pandemic condition, so the traffic level of service usually don't change dramatically. So they're pretty stable unless, like for example, add another lane or we made some dramatic capacity improvement. Otherwise, just by changing the signal timing, it won't change dramatically. It may improve a little bit, but doesn't change that much. And another thing, I think Phil already mentioned, I also mentioned before in one of the meetings is we are looking for some automatic traffic signal performance measure system. And we have been testing a couple of systems, but right now, those automatic signal performance measures are based on the real-time field data. And so that can provide better, actually, the field measurement. So until we have that system established, so probably we will try not to provide another similar report from the model because, like I mentioned, it probably won't change much. And so hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll fully implement a model citywide and we'll provide another better real-time traffic signal performance measures, including, when we talk about level of service, it indicates a collection of measure of effectiveness. So not only about the letter A through F, also include the other performance measures. So hopefully can provide another comprehensive report in the future.
Thank you, Hong.
Yeah, thank you. That answers my question.
I also see Commissioner Miller's hand is up, so I'll call on Commissioner Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. I understand why this wouldn't make major changes over a period of time, except for things like the once in a lifetime pandemic. But I'm kind of curious how then you deal with spot increases in traffic. And I'm thinking in particular along the McDowell corridor, where what used to be auto dealers are now turning into apartments and condos. Certainly there's going to be a major change in traffic there. So how do you track that and adjust traffic numbers for that?
Chair and Commissioners, this is Doug Osler. Whenever new developments or redevelopments come into the city also has the opportunity to review required traffic impact and mitigation analyses that are required by the developer to submit. And there is a process that we get involved with in determining the projection of traffic conditions in the future without and with proposed changes in land uses and intensities. In addition, there are other developments that are outside of our jurisdiction, but do increase the traffic along Scottsdale roads. But that kind of happens from time to time. The Transportation Management Center, Traffic Management Center, excuse me, presumably has their process that they continually look over intersections in an audit style, as well as needs arise, and we can give heads up about changes that occur. I'm sure other people can join in on answering the question that may satisfy your question for further understanding for that.
So I guess I'm just trying to understand. So I understand they put out what they're anticipating traffic will be. So then traffic management at some point just makes note of whether turns out they were right or not. Is there a specific process at some point? Do you say it's done, so let's see what the numbers actually are, or is it?
Yeah, Chair and Commissioners,
Doug, I'll take a shot at this.
Okay, go ahead.
Chair and members of the commission. I think as Hong was saying, unless it's a major development, it's not going to have major impacts on the level of service, but we are constantly evaluating the signal timing. She's going through a process of improving signal timing in different sections of the city, and we will be continually doing that. So that process is collecting new traffic volumes and then looking at signal timing on a corridor or area-wide basis, not individual intersections. I think the example that you used on McDowell Road Corridor, I don't think that would be a significant enough increase in traffic that it would really have a major effect on like intersections, and the traffic is going to be somewhat diluted as you get further away from the site. I think if we had a major development, like say downtown, again, the impacts would be mostly right adjacent to it, where you might have to adjust signal timing, like a Scottsdale and Camelback, if there's a new development that's, as you may know, on the southeast corner. When that gets developed, we could have to adjust signal timing. And the way that we sort of monitor that is through our video cameras, that we can watch congestion, we can watch the intersection, see how well they're operating, and complaints from drivers and citizens. So we will pay attention to changes and through the TMC and our ability to change signal timing, make adjustments. The other step would be if there is major increases in an area, as Doug kind of mentioned, we might need to program a capital project to look at adding another left turn lane or adding a right turn lane. We also do studies to look at the left turn phasing to see if a left turn arrow is needed or if it needs to be protected. So we're sort of constantly monitoring things and making adjustments. We don't like turn the system on and then walk away from it. So, and again, a lot of the way we know that there are problems is getting phone calls and emails saying, hey, I had to sit through 2 cycles at this intersection. So we try to keep aware on the problems and make adjustments. Thank you.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you very much.
And I don't see any further hands. And so if there are no other comments or discussion items, I would like to thank Doug for his service to the city and for the presentation tonight.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners.
Yes. I'm sorry, there was a conflict there. Doug, are you thanking all of us too?
Yes, I said thank you.
Very
Chair and
good.
Commissioners, have a great evening.
Very good, very good. With that, we'll go on to item number 5 on our agenda, which is an overview of the City of Scottsdale transit system. And I have to say that this is one of the Commission's most favorite topics. And the pandemic has certainly had its fair share of impacts on our transit system. So tonight's presentation by Radna Corapella should be very, very interesting to us, even though it's not just an overview, but it is an overview of what's currently going on. So I, for one, will pay special attention.
Okay.
Yes.
Here I am. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. This is the first time doing this online Zoom presentation.
Well, you're doing fine, Radna.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Anderson, and members of the Transportation Commission, good evening. I'm Ratna Korapella, Transit Manager with the city. And this evening, I'll give a very high-level overview of the city's transit and paratransit programs. My slides are not advancing. Okay, here we go. As this is a graphic which shows the map of the current transit routes that exist as of today. As you can see, we have 2 north-south routes. One is on Scottsdale Road and the other one is on Hayden Road. These are the 2 long routes, I would say the spine of our transit system. And then we have east-west routes that come in from Phoenix, which also connects to other communities such as Glendale, Peoria, other cities on the West Valley. We have routes on McDowell, Thomas, Indian School, Camelback. We have on Shea, Greenway, it barely comes into Scottsdale, and then we have Route 170 on Bell Road. So these are the fixed routes that that we run in Scottsdale. As you can see, the bus looks more, this is a Valley Metro logo kind of bus. We purchased the east-west route service from City of Phoenix, and the 2 north-south routes, we purchase a service from Valley Metro, and we have intergovernmental agreements that we renew each year with each of those entities. Also, these buses have a fare box, so we collect fare on these routes. Whereas I'll show you in the coming slides, we have something that called a trolley service, which doesn't have any fare. One other important thing to know is for these services, we purchase on a per mile basis. So how many revenue miles come into Scottsdale, that's how much we pay those entities. Whereas in the case of trolley service, which I will be sharing in the next couple of slides, we pay per revenue hour. So there is a difference. I just want you to be aware. This is a table which shows up by each route when service comes and ends in Scottsdale. Also, we look at it by different times of the day because one thing to keep in mind, most of these transit trips during weekdays are primarily used for work purposes. We draw a lot of workforce from other parts of the region because one thing, the cost of living in Scottsdale is high, so not everybody who work in Scottsdale can live in Scottsdale. So if you see on the east-west routes, we draw a number of trips coming in the morning for work, and in the evening, we see the reverse commute. So we look at this chart, like early morning, people come into work as early as 6 o'clock. And in the evening, the rush hour ends like 6:30, 7 o'clock. 6 years ago, when I initially started here, a number of these things were more than 30 minutes. Sometimes we were 45 minutes, 50 minutes. But over the last 6-7 years, when there was an opportunity to improve transit, we primarily focused on, okay, where are the gaps? What can we do to improve our system? So as you can see, we are in a pretty good shape at this point. Late night trips are at 30 minutes. During some of these routes are high ridership corridors like Scottsdale Road, Indian School. So we have a little bit of higher frequency. Thomas McDowell are the two high ridership routes, and during midday, during rush hours, we even provide anywhere from 16 to 20 minutes. So this is how our fixed route system frequency looks like at this time. Now coming to the trolley routes, this is a service that is operated, the buses are owned by the city of Scottsdale, and we hire a contractor to provide this service. We currently have 4 trolley routes. One is, there is a downtown circulator which was operating until the COVID situation. Right now, we did not resume service on that. But if you, right now, we operate 3 routes. This is the 68 cm route, the green one. The yellow route is Miller Hayden, which connects all the way to Mustang Transit Center. And then the Mustang route starts at Frank Lloyd Wright, and it goes all the way at 94th Street to the Raintree area where we have Walmart, Costco, that shopping complex. So the trolley routes, this is like a hub, Mustang Transit Center. We have Shea coming in from City of Phoenix. We have our Miller Hayden, and then we also have Route 81. So this is primarily a big hub. And the trolley bus looks something like this. As you can see, there is a slight variation on how the buses look like from the regional system. One thing to keep in mind is the trolleys, we do not have any fare boxes. It is a fare-free service. So people pretty much can start at the northern section of Scottsdale and use a trolley and go all the way to the southern border of Scottsdale. This is a transfer map. This is a transfer map which shows how we are integrated with the regional system. As you can see, a lot of places you see the term T, which means we provide a transfer. Like Route 17, it comes on McDowell Road, and then we have 68 cm where people have an opportunity to transfer. Same thing with Route 29. People can transfer between trolley and fixed routes, and a number of other routes too, 41, 50, and then we have Mustang Transit Center, as I just indicated. We also have a transfer between 170 and the trolley at, this is Raintree area. So what I mean to say is, though we are a fare-free, we are like an intercity bus. That's how I would put it, that we provide regional connectivity, but it is a fare-free service within the city of Scottsdale, which provides regional connectivity too. Now let's look at the frequency on the trolleys. As you can see, the chart speaks for itself. You can see 20-minute frequency throughout the day. That is a big thing when we modified all the we revisited the entire transit system. We looked at it in 2018. We did a thorough review of the existing routes. We did extensive public outreach, and then we modified the routes. One thing we really focused is what can we do so people can easily, if they can remember the schedules without a bus book, we thought it would really help the public. And that's how we came within the budget we had and with the buses we had. This is what we could provide at that point in time. So that's how this 20-minute frequency thing surfaced. Due to COVID, we shut down the service on March 25th. And then on August 3rd, we resumed service on 3 of the 4 routes. Like I said, the downtown, we did not start the route back even now. But rest of the routes, we resume service, but we are ending the service at 7 o'clock. Prior to COVID, we were operating until 10:30 to 11 o'clock at night. And also we were providing weekend service. We provided 16 hours of weekday and 14 hours of weekend service. As of today, we are only operating 13 hours, and that is all on weekdays. Primarily because the ridership is a little bit low at this time, but we still want to provide that ability for people to get to schools, people to get to work, and that's the primary thing. When we shut down the service, we received a number of calls that people were struggling to get back to work. So when time was right, we resumed the service, which was August 3rd. How do we fund transit? The primary sources of funding are the regional sales tax. This is Proposition 400 that we get funding through Valley Metro. And then we have local city sales tax dollars that we use. Every year we receive about 600,000 in lottery funds through Valley Metro, which trickles in from ADOT. And we receive grants, federal grants to purchase buses. We also receive federal grants for preventative maintenance on the buses that we own. I think one other point that I did not mention before with the trolleys is all the buses we own, Scottsdale owns, and Scottsdale Fleet Department maintains the buses on a day-to-day basis. The contractor just comes in every morning with his drivers, and then basically he operates the service. Rest of the responsibility lies with the city. So now you heard from me about trolley service and the fixed route. The other part of work my team does is also the Paratransit program. What is Paratransit? As you can see, it's a shared door-to-door service, and we have to comply with the ADA Act of 1990. So why the Paratransit service that Valley Metro provides, this is a graphic which you can put a face to that. What is the goal of Paratransit? The primary goal is there are people who are ADA certified who cannot use bus or light rail. So this is mandated by law that we have to provide paratransit service. So the federally mandated area this is how we draw it. If all the routes we have in Scottsdale, we draw a 3/4 mile buffer around all the routes. The blue area that you see here, that is the ADA mandated area. So we need to provide paratransit service within that area. And also any small pockets, say like all these small pockets, we still need to cover. So it's that big blue area is what is the ADA service area. This chart, City of Scottsdale has 3 different programs: the ADA Paratransit, Right Choice, and Cab Connection. Cab Connection is it's a Scottsdale program, and it is managed by our own staff. Right Choice, this is run by Valley Metro. Again, through our intergovernmental agreements, we have a contract with Valley Metro, who hires a contractor to run this service. ADA Paratransit, yes, this is also run by Valley Metro because the ADA service area for the whole region is all operated by them for most part. As you can see from this chart, there are different costs involved, different requirements for each programs. So for example, ADA requirement for a paratransit, you need to be ADA certified. For right choice, yes, but for cab connection, this is for people 65 and older in residents of Scottsdale, and they don't need to be having any, they don't need to be ADA certified to be part of this program, but these two require that. So age requirements, and it also varies with how many trips we provide. One thing to also note is the same day service. With ADA Paratransit, you cannot call same day service, whereas with right choice and cab connection, you can have same day service. So when I say ADA certification, let me take a step back. This is a free certification that Valley Metro has a mobility center where a rider, they even pay for the fare to provide connectivity to get there. It's a free service. You go there and they check that you have a disability, and if you get your certification, then you can be part of the ADA Paratransit or the Right Choice program. As I mentioned, the ADA Paratransit service, that is the 3/4 mile radius buffer, what service we provide. This is done by Valley Metro. All the trips will begin within the paratransit area and end within the area. So for the whole region, you have the buffer. All the trips just operate within those boundaries. That is what is mandated by law. They might have to share a ride. These are vans. They have more than one person sometimes, but there is no limit on the number of trips. As I mentioned, you cannot book a trip on the same day. It needs to be at least a day in advance. Right choice. This is also another program we just started in July of 2019 for Scottsdale. This would help people like who fall outside the 3/4 mile buffer. Say, for example, a lot of people living in North Scottsdale who are outside that buffer. In the past, we used to do some exceptions for some people. And finally, in last year, July of 2019, Scottsdale made a decision not to do any exceptions. We said our paratransit will stick to the 3/4 mile buffer. And then we have this right choice program where people up north in this area can use an Uber or a taxi, come to the boundary. If they have a very long trip, they can switch to ADA Paratransit and they can go all the way to Avondale, wherever they want. In the past, they did not have that flexibility, and this is a little cheaper option. People can be ADA certified to participate in this, and they have to be ADA certified. So it's a win-win situation for several residents. So we moved to that program in July of 2019. The last program, this is a city operated, like I have 2 staff who do part of this work. Every month we send vouchers, and this is a subsidized taxi ride for people who are 65 and older. They can be ADA certified, but it is not mandatory that they have to be certified. Participants usually get 20 vouchers per month. The maximum the city pays is $10. So every time they have to pay 80% of the fare. 80% of the fare is paid by us and 20% is paid by them. How do we fund paratransit? As you saw from the transit, these two are the primary sources of funding: the regional sales tax, Preposition 400, and the city sales tax. One thing to keep in mind is Preposition 400 only pays for right choice and paratransit. They will not pay anything towards our cab connection program. And those costs are paid by city sales tax. We do get some grants to offset some of the funding. So this is another option on the table. When there is an opportunity, we usually use those grants. But recently, we didn't have grants to operate the paratransit program. So that's a very high level overview, but in the coming months, next month, maybe we can share a little bit more data on how the ridership looks like, dive a little bit more into the funding details and things like that. With that, I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much, Radna. I have a couple of questions. I don't see any. Oh, I do see Commissioner Law has a question, so I will defer to Commissioner Law.
Commissioner Lal here. Question, do we use any special software to coordinate services between Valley Metro, Trolley, and Paratransit?
Software wise, only thing we have a vehicle management system. You mean to manage the programs, Commissioner Lal?
Yes, so that they get coordinated well, so riders have the littlest wait times and so on.
Oh, okay. So there are multiple things I can, a couple of things I want to mention on that. So any complaints that people make, or whether it's a positive note or a negative note, if people send it, it gets entered through a system called CAS system, Customer Assistance System. So one person on my team, actually, that's an integrated program, the rest of the region. So if there are any ADA issues, or if the positive note, or if the buses are running late, the comments, whether it's a phone call or an email, everything gets logged into that regional system, and we address it. Or if we need to reach out to the customer, we reach out, we close the issues there. So that's one way where we coordinate as a team between Phoenix Valley Metro and our trolley program.
But that's more if problems arise. But to begin with, I know there are software programs available that can coordinate all the services, so we have little problems to begin with.
So when you talk about transfers and that kind of coordination, when we are doing route planning, we do use software. We use Hastus. So that is where when we plan, once the planning process goes through, we put everything into Hastus, so we know the connectivity is working well, the transfers are timed properly. Yes, we do use a software for that, and it is housed with Phoenix, and we contract them out for our trolleys and everything. Yes, if that is what you are looking for.
Okay, so but it's not real time. It's done more as a planning tool.
Oh, so that's one part. The real time right now, all the buses on the trolleys and the fixed routes have a technology called Clever devices. We barely launched the system, so people can get real-time information, and we ourselves, we are able to sit in the office and see where the trolleys are at any point in time. So that's from the real-time information perspective. But no other, so Hastus dispatch is another thing where people can sit in, our RTW contractor sits at the computer, and say, for example, there is a traffic jam in Phoenix, the communication gets trickled through the system, so we know we have to go on a detour or something. So that's another way we work, we coordinate and communicate on issues like those.
Okay, thanks.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Radna, we also have two of our new commissioners are going to be speaking also. I wasn't sure if I should turn it over to the commissioners, or if Pete Peralta of the staff would like to speak first.
Sure. Yeah, let Pete speak. I'm not able to see the hands. I probably have to come out of the presentation to see. I can.
Right, I can see the hands are here. So
okay.
I wanted to find out if staff wanted to make a comment on what you already spoke about, or should I let the commissioners voice or have their discussion first?
Doesn't matter to me.
Chair Yakova, I was trying to answer Commissioner Law's question about the software.
Yes, go ahead.
Commissioner Law, Chair Yakova, other commissioners, there's a feature with Clever Devices that is currently being released. It's called Transfer Connection Protocol, and it's real-time communication between bus to bus, trolley to trolley, trolley to fixed route, and the request can be put in by the operator to an adjacent bus. If a passenger wants to make a real-time transfer or hold a bus, they put a request in. They can hold a bus, say a Miller Hayden bus to a Route 41 bus. That goes to the dispatch station in Phoenix for approval by a dispatcher if it's not going to put the other bus too far behind. But the technology's there. Our contractor is slowly getting trained on it and utilizing it, but that will be for hopefully a future presentation on Clever Devices.
That helps even better. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Pete. We do have Clever Devices on our future agenda items, so that would be a good thing too. Maybe we'll, with Director Malenchenko's approval, we could fast forward that because it's been on our agenda, but we were just waiting for it to be finalized and there to be a comfort level in the Clever Devices program. So it is on our agenda. So thank you very much for your presentation and for answering Commissioner Law's question.
Commissioner Law, again, if you're looking into that, I just came across a software that does the coordination service for transit, particularly it was developed by MIT, but now it's with a private company. I think it's called the routing company. You may want to look at that as you developing any future presentation.
Thank you. We have our two of our new commissioners also have their hands up. So I'm going to call on Commissioner Pachowski.
Thank you, Radna, for the overview of the Scottsdale transit system. Just two concerns. You mentioned providing ridership data. In the future, that would be very interesting to see the ridership data for the trolley routes. And the second concern is when a decision is made to stop transit of the trolley routes, who makes that decision as they did during the COVID? Who makes the decision to stop or to start the routes?
Okay, I would defer that question to Mark and Dan, I think, who are probably can address that. Dan?
Hi, this is Dan Worth speaking. That was a city manager decision in consultation with the council. Things were happening fast and there was a lot of concerns among the public. And that was one of many measures that the city manager made regarding curtailing services to protect the public health. Same time, he was looking at city facilities, city programs, lots of different places where numbers of people came together that presented the opportunity for the spread of the virus. He decided to step out and take action. And then we reviewed that, obviously, over time. And in August, as Rana pointed out, based on the governor at the state level, removing some of the restrictions and allowing some things to go back to closer to normal, as well as hearing from some of our customers, we decided to partially resume service. As Radna explained, we resumed 3 out of the 4 routes, and we limited early morning and late evening and eliminated the weekend hours. So we're operating under a partial schedule again. That was a city manager call with input from us. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Executive Director Worth. I see another hand up from Commissioner Yates.
Hi, this is Commissioner Yates. Thank you for the presentation. I just had a couple quick questions about the trolley. I was thinking back when I had ridden the trolley in the past, and I have a mild recollection of there being a kind of a brochure and a map and maybe even some local businesses highlighted on this brochure. Am I remembering that correctly? Is there a brochure at the trolley stops?
That is correct, Commissioner Yates. Yes, we did have brochures, but recently we didn't print because we changed the schedules and everything. We didn't know how long this, alternate schedule will go and all that stuff. So that's why we did not print anymore. But in the past, whatever you saw, your recollection is correct.
Yeah, how does it work? How do the businesses that are highlighted, how are they selected? Is there any type of contribution or public-private partnership?
Pete, I would defer that question to Pete, but usually, I mean, advertising inside the trolley, when they pay a fee to be advertised inside the trolley. But if you're just talking about a flyer, I'm not sure why that would be highlighted.
I can answer that.
Sure.
Rather, we have our trolley brochure, which is a city-issued publication with our routes. And then the Economic Development Group works with the downtown merchants. They also have a publication that they put out with the trolley routes as an insert on one of the pages. So both of those two publications are made available on board the trolleys. So there's a separation, I guess, of the two different publications, but they both include the trolley routes on them.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I thought there might be something like that. And I have seen, I've been in cities that there have been, free transportation options downtown where there has been a kind of a very deliberate public-private partnership where, so you can imagine that, if you're a local business and the trolley stops right in front of your business, that, it could be, potentially lucrative to encourage people to use the trolley. But I did have another quick question about how the trolley is advertised to prospective visitors that are thinking about coming to Scottsdale. And I know that the Scottsdale CVB has some information on the website, but I wanted to know, if there's a marketing plan for the trolley kind of specifically?
Commissioner Yates, I would love to answer that question. We wanted to do marketing. I mean, after we changed all the routes, we didn't get an opportunity to really go do marketing. We wanted to do it, we planned for it, and suddenly with the COVID, things went in a different direction. But like you said, we print brochures, downtown merchants are aware of the trolley service, and we give a lot of, we put books and stuff in the library. So there are different ways we do, but we wanted to do a more full-blown outreach after we changed these routes to 20-minute frequency throughout the day. That did not happen. So Pete, do you have anything else to add on the marketing?
Yes, Rada. We work really closely with economic development with Karen over there, and we were working on a project for a rebranding and kind of with the new vehicles that were arriving, a rebranding and doing advertisements at the senior centers and the Scottsdale libraries and getting our maps and our transit books and all those locations. But as far as kicking it up to a national scale, that would be at, I guess, direction of department heads if they wanted to take it to that further level.
Yeah, I think something that could be interesting, I'm thinking of a, prospective visitor to Scottsdale, and they're making, they want to come to Arizona. They're deciding, which city to go to. Do they go to Scottsdale? Do they go to Gilbert? Do they go, to another kind of local kind of intra-market competitor? And, the trolley could potentially make some difference in terms of, do you have to rent a car the entire time? I'm looking at coming to Scottsdale and I'm like, oh, I'll stay in Old Town. They've got this cool trolley that I've read about ahead of time. Maybe I'll only rent a car half the trip, go to the Grand Canyon or something, come back, use the trolley and use Uber the other part of the time. And so I think there could be some really good synergies with using the trolley as a driver to, in terms of, visitors from other states. But I just kind of wanted to say that, and I would be interested in contributing to marketing efforts of the trolley in the future as that kind of gets back online, hopefully.
Thank you, Commissioner
Thank
Yates.
you.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully things pick up and we resume the service to normal levels at some point. But yeah, definitely marketing is one thing that we have been seriously looking and trying to find ways on what we can do to improve the ridership. And it's a user experience is another thing, right? What can we do so we can attract more riders, even with the current system?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Radna. I see a hand up from Commissioner Lal.
Yes. There was a proposal at one time to have an audio system on the trolleys, which will announce to the riders the stops coming up and their significance, if any. How far did we get with that, or is that still in the works?
I
Are the
can
new
answer.
trolleys going to have something like that?
This is Pete Peralta, Commissioner Law, Chair Commission. That system is up and running. As part of the Clever Devices installation, all the vehicles currently have the audio annunciators as well as GPS auto vehicle locating software on board. So those are all real time and currently they are all up to date. So if you ride it, it does call out the next cross streets and major shopping centers such as Fashion Square.
Yeah, that makes the need for any brochures less significant if we're doing those announcements.
And we're in the regional announcements now. So if there's anything regional or even the COVID announcements, those are all announced on an interval as announced, programmed into the system ahead of time.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if Commissioner Yates had another comment or, oh, there, I just saw his hand go down. So I have a couple of comments. I wanted to let the new commissioners know that we did have a ridership data and cost analysis that Radna prepared. I want to say it was in 2020, early of 2020 or late in 2019. That would be the findings of that and the discussion of that would be in the minutes that are online. If you're interested in reading that until we get a chance to get the next round of this update, the ridership data and the cost per rider is available on our Transportation Commission packets. The other thing I wanted to ask Radna was how does Scottsdale's transit service compare to other cities in the valley? Can you answer that relatively quickly, or are we good with how we're operating, or we do see gaps?
You bring up a good point. So Scottsdale is either at the tail end or at the beginning of each route, right? Because of the geography, all the east-west routes coming in from Phoenix. For example, a route can start in Glendale at 5 o'clock. And if Scottsdale says we want the first trip to come into our town by 5:30, it may not happen because we are dependent on other city, dependent on what service Phoenix provides, right? So that's always has been a challenge because we probably want to run 10-minute frequency, but Phoenix only provides 20-minute frequency to our border. They will not, from a transit operations perspective, some things are not feasible sometimes. But generally, if you're looking at it, 30 minutes is pretty good. We have come a long way compared to where we were 6 years ago. We have more consistent frequencies. Is there room for improvement? Definitely. There are some routes where we could go to 15-minute frequency. For example, Scottsdale Road. It's a very high ridership corridor, but we plan to go to 15 minutes. Tempe and Chandler said, yes, we all are on board, but when funding is an issue, when they back off, it doesn't really make for Scottsdale to just make improvements within that city, because people, when they go, they want a seamless service from Scottsdale all the way to Chandler. We did an improvement just within our city a couple of years ago, and to be very honest, it was a failure. So we backed off and we invested the funding elsewhere. So there is always room for improvement. And we constantly have to see where the needs of the public are and how we are doing and performance of the system. So more and more we want to look at data, analyze data and see, okay, if we have these couple of trips, where should we invest? And that should be backed with some logical decisions using data from the past years and the public input that we receive.
Thank you, Radna. I also wanted to point out that there's also some requirements that go along with the adjustments to our transit or trolley service. And that would be, you know, making sure that our bus stops are ADA compliant if we're putting in new locations for people to alight or to board. So there's a lot to our whole transit system. So I wanted to personally thank you, Radna, and the city staff for everything that you're doing to keep us up to date, but also knowing that we do have some gaps. And I know you're working hard to fill those gaps. So thank you very much.
Madam Chair, this is Mark Melnichenko.
Yes.
What I would like to add is the evaluation of our current transportation or current transit system is one of our planning efforts that we will be undergoing this coming year. We have the update of our transportation master plan, which also includes a transit element in it. We have the pavement prioritization program for the city, as well as the evaluation of the transit system. So those are our three major planning efforts for the coming year, and we will continually update the commission on those efforts.
Thank you very much, Director. I don't see any other hands, and so we can then, if it's okay with everyone else, we can move on to item number 6, and that would be Susan Conklew, I believe, is going to present to us on, oh yes, our e-counters for bikes and pedestrians, and this is another topic that has been of interest to the Transportation Commission. So, Susan, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Let me make sure. Can everyone see my cover slide?
Yes.
All right. Well, good evening. I have a very brief overview of our counts program. Let me get to my first slide. Okay. There are a lot of benefits to counting people walking and biking. This really falls under evaluation and planning, which is one of the 5 E's in how they measure the city's bicycle friendly status with the League of American Bicyclists. It helps determine, you know, mode share. It can help with calculating real collision rates instead of just looking at numbers of incidents. And up until more recently, the only available data for cities was really the American Community Survey, which told journey to work data, but didn't give any other information about who's traveling by bike or walking for any other purposes. So we really want a more rounded amount of data to look at. The technology has been emerging over the past few years. I want to say it was about 2012 when I first heard of EcoCounter as one company that sells automated counters for people biking and walking. And the city installed the first EcoCounter in summer of 2018 with the Crosscut Canal Bridge and Path project, which was installed south of McDowell Road and connects to Bellevue. Bellevue Street has a great east-west bike route. These, if you look at the photo, it uses inductive loops, which detect the cyclists both directions, and this pyro sensor in the post, called the urban post, has a little lens, I guess you could call it, that detects pedestrians and also gets the direction of travel. And what is great about this company is everything gets it has Bluetooth technology for the data to be uploaded, and then the city has access to their dashboard, so we can run reports. It's kind of hard to see the font on this, and we don't, it chooses the colors and things, so that's the one drawback, but we can look at all kinds of things where we quickly run reports by checking off the parameters we want to display. Using their dashboard, we can look at the user types, the numbers, we can look at percentages, we can evaluate days of the week by month, by year, however we would like. We can also further break down the data by time of day or look at peak times. It really just depends on what we want to look at. So in this past spring, Dave Meinhardt, Greg Davies, and I came up with an idea to add several more bike counters. We still are open to adding them with projects as those get installed, but we thought, hey, what about existing areas? Where should we look at some things? So we came up with 8 locations for permanent counters, and we decided to also purchase 2 mobile counters that do pretty much the same thing. You can just move them around different locations. And currently, these are being installed. This one down here shows the existing one for the Crosscut Canal, but these other locations show the ones that are being installed. This photo shows Indian Bend Wash Path just north of McKellips Road. Part of what went into deciding the locations we had on the previous slide was we wanted to kind of spread things evenly throughout the city, but also look at some areas where the path runs through parks, get a better picture of how many users are there, and also not just look at the Indian Bend Wash Path, but look at Arizona Canal, look at Pima Path, and some areas up north. We do have one just east of the Loop 101 on Sweetwater, since there's a bike, pedestrian, and equestrian bridge there. So that was kind of our methodology for coming up with these locations. But as you can see in this photo, it's not that visible to see the inductive loops, or even the post. One reason why that is made that way is to kind of reduce potential vandalism and things like that, but also just to minimize the clutter that people see when they're out in the built environment. We did provide an update to the Path and Trails Subcommittee on Tuesday, December 8th, and the discussion was brief, but it supported adding these types of improvements so that we could collect data on path usage. And our next steps are to study the counts monthly or quarterly and provide updates to your group as well as the public. We will coordinate with Maricopa Association of Governments as well. They've kicked off their annual regional counting program. We will have more information in the future on that, but we've agreed to provide our data to them as well. And then every 4 years, when we reapply for our Bicycle Friendly Community Award status with the League of American Bicyclists, we'll be able to share more information. That's a newer question last round that did ask specifics about, do you do bike counts? What are your numbers? So that can really help us a lot. And we're excited to start looking at all the different areas and comparing them and see what kind of numbers we have. So with that, I will take comments, questions, and I can go back to any slides if you wish. And I can't actually see hands raised at this point, so I'll just wait for Chair Yakovo to call on people.
Thank you, Susan. I do see a couple of hands. I see a hand from one of our new commissioners also, Karen Kowal. So Karen, I'll call on you.
Great, thank you. This is Karen Kowal. Susan, you recently put up the virtual public meeting to improve biking and intro to what's going on here in Scottsdale. Are you getting any comments back with the surveys yet?
Thank you, Commissioner Kowal, Chair Yakovo. We have, I think, got about 18 back as of this morning. I haven't seen them yet. I typically request about once a week to get the questionnaire results sent to us, but I believe you're referring to the Old Town Bicycle Master Plan virtual open house. So since that'll be up until January 5th, I'll probably ask once a week or so for the summary of the responses. And they've also added a general comment at the end of that so that people can write more detail as opposed to just answering questions with like drop down menus and buttons and things. So we may get questions about these kinds of things of how many people walk, how many people bike.
Right. And I have a second question, if you don't mind. I read in one of your reports, or it was in the presentation, that of the 419 reports that have come in, complaints, 56% of them were about scooters parked in prohibited areas. And I was curious, has that decreased at all, given that maybe there's less scooters that are being used? Some of them are going away and COVID.
Can you repeat those numbers? I'm sorry. I'm writing and I'm not good at hearing the numbers at the same time.
So in the report, it said that the complaints between December 2018 and July 2019, that there were 419 complaints, but 56% of them were about scooters parked in prohibited areas. And I was curious, in 2020, do you know if that number has gone down, and has the number of e-bikes and e-scooters that companies were putting in Scottsdale, has that increased or decreased?
Thank you for that question. I think you're referring to the information we have about the city council report on sharing devices.
Excuse me, Susan. Chair Yakova, unfortunately, Commissioner Kowal's questions are not part of this agendized item.
Oh, okay.
Those are things we can certainly follow up with you on, but our requirements are that we focus on questions related to what was in the report for this particular item. And I appreciate your patience on that. Thank you. This was Dave Meinhardt.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, I can reach out. I can follow up with you outside of the meeting and get you that kind of information.
Yeah, I guess I'm really curious. Have these types of vehicles gone down? But we can do it offline.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. And thank you, Commissioner Kowal. I see a hand from Commissioner Yates.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. This is scooter related, but I was going to ask, the way the technology works, how would it classify a scooter? Would a scooter be considered a pedestrian in the e-counter technology? Thank you.
That's a great question. Thank you, Commissioner Yates. I think Greg Davies may know a little more technology about that, but I think those loops would detect the metal, so it would possibly count that as a bicyclist. But I'll see if Greg has more detail.
Yes, Commissioner Yates and Chair Yakova, this is Greg Davies. In respect, that's a great question, Commissioner Yates. The way I perceive it is to be counted as a bicycle because the wheels are interacting with the inductive loop. And so there's that takes place as the both wheels cross over the inductive loop. It would probably be considered a bicyclist.
Yeah, we can check in on that.
Reach out to EcoCounter.
Yeah, I actually went to their website this afternoon, but I couldn't. I think the whole scooter phenomenon is still relatively new, and so it wasn't highlighted on the website. They did talk about skateboards and if two bikes ride beside each other and some other counting issues, but not scooters specifically. But surely they're researching. And I did have one other question related to counting, and this is probably a dumb question, but the crosswalk, the push buttons at the crosswalk, those don't collect any information. They just kind of hit the signal. Is that true? So there's no information there?
I don't know that it does. I don't know if Hong is still in the meeting from earlier, but we can check into that and follow up on if it detects that, or if our bicycle detection at traffic signals does a similar thing.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because there's those push buttons at all these intersections, but yeah, I imagine they're just kind of dummy buttons that trigger the signal and they're not actually collecting any information. But maybe long term, assuming they're not collecting any information now, like with kind of as those signals get replaced over time with Internet of Things and things getting cheaper, that maybe those could collect info in the future, and then we would have this really robust network of collection devices to every single crosswalk.
That would be great if it is possible. Thank you. And then just an update. So far we've had 24 responses from my earlier question. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Yates. Susan, I have one question. Did the city receive grant money, or how are we accommodating the installation of the e-counters at the various locations that they're at currently?
Thank you, Chair Yakubo. That is a great question. In this case, we did not. We did have grant funding for the Crosscut Canal bridge and path for a large portion of that project. And path counters are federally eligible. They're one of the things when we apply for a grant that we can fill in on the sheet. For these 8 new ones and the 2 new mobile counters, we chose to use our annual bikeway account. We call it the Y account sometimes, but it's program funds that we get each year for that program. We still plan to, when we can, include that on future federal projects so that it can be added during the major construction.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands for you, Susan. So we are free then, I think, to move on to item number 7, which calls for a presentation from the Transportation and Streets Director, Mark Melenchenko.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commission members. Tonight's presentation, brief presentation will kind of highlight some of the infrastructure projects that we've implemented over the past few months. And if we go to the next slide. First of all, I'd like to show this slide every once in a while to just kind of give a brief view of the department. And tonight, it kind of provided a good overview. We had transit, we had transportation planning from Susan Conclu and Ratna from transit, and then traffic engineering, we had Doug Osler. So I think what we try to do is give a good round overview of things that are happening in each of the sections. So I think it was some great presentations tonight. We could go to the next slide. The first item that I'd like to bring up, and this also has a really good story to it. It happened via tragedy. There was this is a new hawk that has been implemented over at Scottsdale Road and Palm Lane. There was a fatality in 2019. There was an elderly resident crossing to a transit stop and was hit and killed. There was an evaluation here and study done, and this has transit stops on both sides, a post office, a gym, Dutch Brothers, and other activities at this crossing. And so we work with the developer and also funding received through MAG to implement this hawk crossing. You may want to know what HAWK stands for. It's a high intensity activated crosswalk. It's really a traffic signal used to help pedestrians safely cross streets. So this is the 8th one that has been implemented in Scottsdale, and we have 4 others in planning stages. But we're hoping that this is a great tool that we use from our toolbox to make our streets safer. So I think out of this tragedy, we were able to implement this important feature to help safe crossings for residents at this intersection. Next. This also was an interesting story. We have a resident named Sonia Breck. She requested an audible signal for her father at Scottsdale Road and McDonald, pictured here. He's a legally blind gentleman and would required an installation of this audible signal. And so staff worked with this gentleman on making this improvement happen. And what's interesting is that the installation requires drilling into the light pole and then wiring a device to communicate between the button and the pedestrian head. Later on, when the arrow is tapped, then audio occurs, and either you wait to cross or until the signal is on the cross. So pedestrians who are visually impaired can push and hold the button for a few seconds to receive a personalized message, such as wait to cross Scottsdale Road, or walk sign is on to cross the Scottsdale Road. The pedestrian can also keep their hand on the arrow, and it will vibrate to indicate when it's okay to cross. This will also audibly count down how much time is left to clear the crosswalk safely. So this was implemented, and it's a great feature for a gentleman like this to be able to traverse on a daily basis and really go to some of the activity areas along Scottsdale Road that are part of his day. So I thought that was a really good example of staff working with the community on putting in a much needed piece of infrastructure. Next. Along our PEMA multi-use path, we're putting in a number of high visibility crosswalks. This also was a request from the community because of some of the issues of people turning left into the crosswalk. And so we've implemented a number of these crosswalks. They're called ladder stage, and they go from Via de Ventura all the way down to McDowell. And this is a great example of a kind of a stage one safety improvement at these crossings. Next. Here's some other examples of these high visibility crosswalks along the multi-use path along Pima Road. Next. At Hayden Road and Roosevelt, just to the north of McDowell Road, or south of McDowell Road on Hayden, there was an area that required improvements, ADA improvements, as well as curb, gutter, and sidewalk for accessibility. And so this is a before shot of that area along Hayden Road. If you go to the next slide, you can see some of the improvements that were occurring to provide ADA ramps, sidewalk, and curb and gutter for these improvements along the stretch of Hayden Road. Next. Then you can kind of see the final improvements. So this is another good example of some of the infrastructure improvements to improve pedestrian accessibility along our streets. Next. And we brought the Indian School Road improvements, paving improvements to the commission at numerous times in the past few months. This now has been completed with repainting of existing brick, as well as new stamped asphalt at the Marshall Way Indian School intersection. So that project along Indian School between Scottsdale Road and 60th Street is now complete. Next. And then lastly, these are some upcoming council items. On January 12th, we will be, as part of the consent items, Camelback Road sidewalks. We have a section of Camelback Road, many of you may know, on the north side of Camelback Road there's a section of the sidewalk between Miller Road and Scottsdale Road that has power poles in the middle of the sidewalk. You'd think Camelback Road would be very pedestrian friendly, but that section of road is in need of improvement. So we're looking to bury the power lines and provide new sidewalk in that area. So there are a number of easements and items that we need to work through. So that will be going to City Council. We also have a McDOT React integrated management pilot, and that is a program that we are working with the Maricopa County Department of Transportation in terms of management during, let's say that the 101, there's a closure of the 101. They will be working with the city of Phoenix or city of Scottsdale on what types of alternative routes for the freeway closure through our right of way. So that agreement is a comprehensive agreement between, as I said, McDOT and the city of Scottsdale. So that will be also working its way through City Council. And then I know a number of council members talked about scooters previously. The revised scooter ordinance will also be going to City Council, and that's tentatively in January. It may be in February, but we're looking for that finalized date. So those are the items that will be upcoming for City Council. Next. And that will conclude my presentation, and I'd like to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Director. This is Chair Yakovo speaking, and I wanted to just make a couple of comments. Thank you very much, for all of the city staff and for all of your listening skills, because, as stewards of the public and being able to listen to the public in the city, you've done a remarkable job, because I'm going to just say that, paint is not expensive, but it does increase safety. It makes our streets safer. And so thank you very much for doing the ladder crosswalks, the high visibility crosswalks, for looking at grant funding for the HAWK program. All of those things say that the city is listening, and safety is very important to us. So I wanted to thank the staff.
Madam Chair, if I might add something to what you had just said. And the staff is really working together. Let's say that there is a major paving project. We also look at some of the safety concerns. Can we restripe? Are there other improvements that are needed? So we kind of look at items holistically now amongst all of the divisions, whether it's the paving division, maintenance, planning, or engineering, and even are there transit stops related to it? So I think we're doing a good job of looking at things comprehensively.
Yes, I for one would agree with that. The integration of all of the disciplines on the staff is definitely noticeable to me. So I'm not sure if anybody else on the commission might want to contribute to that or have any further discussion on that, but I wanted to thank the city staff personally. So thank you. With that, that'll take us to item number 8, which is the commission identification of future agenda items. And I heard a couple of things tonight. The clever devices has been on our future agenda items, and we discussed possibly moving that forward, maybe in January, February. And I wasn't sure if there were other items that the commission would be interested in hearing about also. I see Commissioner Yates' hand go up, and I see Commissioner Miller's hand. So I'll call on Commissioner Yates first.
Hi, this is Andy Yates. I just had a quick potential suggestion. What about heat island effects as it relates to transportation? A couple months ago, I read a little report about a pilot project that the city of Phoenix is doing with using some alternative paving materials to try to reduce the heat island effect in Phoenix. And I wanted to know if Scottsdale had some similar ideas, and if that could be discussed, transportation's role in heat island in the city. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Miller.
I thank you. If it's appropriate, the legislature is going back in January, and it would be interesting to hear if the city of Scottsdale is tracking any transportation issues at the legislature.
I'm just taking notes, so I wanted to make sure that we captured all of these things. I will say that every so often, we have the city's legal staff is also the government affairs staff has made presentations to us, and so this is a very good topic also. And I would encourage anyone, including those of us that have been on the commission for more than 1 year, to go back and revisit any of the other presentations in the other years in 2019 and whatever was left in 2020, because it was an unusual year for sure. But we have had several presentations on a number of these topics, and it would be good to revisit those, but also to have an update on those things. So it's a good reminder to all of us to revisit the minutes and the presentations.
Chair Yacovo, this is Francis. What was Commissioner Miller's request item?
I will ask Commissioner Miller to repeat her request.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Commissioner Miller. Basically, I was asking that if the city of Scottsdale is tracking any transportation issues at the state legislature during this upcoming session, that we be kept informed of what those are.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I don't see any other hands, and we're just a little bit, well, we're going to be within our 2-hour time that we were hoping for, Director Melenchenko, so that's great. If there are no other items for the future agendas and there's no other comments, I will ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
This is Vice Chair Anderson. I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
And do I have a second?
Commissioner Kowal seconds that motion.
Thank you. I don't think we need a roll call for this, so I will ask for all in favor for adjourning this meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? I think that we are officially adjourned at 7:12 p.m.